Good morning or evening, as the case may be. My name is Ken Lasseson. I'm the creator of the Microbiome prescription website. And today I wanted to show you a feature I just added over this weekend. And the feature is a feature for people who have actually done a 16S microbiome sampling and have uploaded their data. Now, if you go in and log in, you will go to your sample pages. This applies to people who have more than one sample. And I'll go down here and it says compare samples to each other, which takes you over to a submenu. The submenu shows you a whole bunch of examples. Go and select the ones you're interested in. For purposes of this demo, I'm selecting everything. Here is a new feature, My Taxon Timeline. Let's click and see what happens. Okay, and now we have a table and a chart appears. First, let's go over to rank. And I won't explain bacteria rank, except there's a hierarchy. Just like we have street to village, village to county, county to state, state to country, country to continent type of hierarchy. Bacteria follows the same thing. So the lowest level is actually down at the species level, and then goes up all the way to things like super kingdom, etc. So most of the time people will be working at the genus level. So we click genus, and then what happens is bacteria list changes. What is in this list is not all the bacteria. This is the list of bacteria that has shown up in any one of your examples. So here we go down and we see things which have shown up in any of the samples. I'm going to go down to Wolveria and seeing what happens. So what we see here is that I was in the first quantile, the bottom 25%, jumped up a bit and then went back down. That's one way of looking at it. And that is likely the simplest way to understand what's going on is pretty stable, improved towards normal, and then went back to where I was before. When you start looking at the precise numbers, you can start having problems because you have no reference points. I mean, is this a major drop or not? It looks like it's a major one, but in reality, it's just moving around in the same low range. Now, if you go over to presentation and change to by numbers, the chart changes. And what we have is in the thick blue line is what your actual values are. And now we have up top, we have the very top line being box plot high outlier. I don't put a max value on the chart for one very simple reason. Max value here could well be 500,000, which means everything else on the chart disappears to a very thin area at the bottom. I instead go for the box plot outlier, where generally if you're outside that, you are likely a abnormal case. So here we have that magic thing, nice solid red line. Next line below it is 75 percentile. In other words, if you have this value or less, you're somewhere in the top bottom 75 percentile. If you're above it, you're in top 25 percentile. Here we have the 50th percentile halfway mark, 25 percentile here. Notice the distance between these lines are not the same. And that's because we're working in percentiles, not averages. And working in percentile is much more accurate for understanding what's going on. Then we hear the box plot low one, which is halfway between the low 25 percentile and the lowest value ever seen. And that basically indicates that, wait a minute, you have gotten abnormally low at this point of time. And now you can see where they go up and down. Very simple. If you go and change to a different bacteria, you will let's take a look at Villanella, which is recently in the news about long distance runners having very high levels, and suspected people with chronic fatigue have very low levels. Let's see what happens. And oh joy, guess what? I'm an outlier, right rock bottom. And you can see also here, top from 50% to 70 to that outlier is nothing, but from here, 75% to 50% is a big span, but from 50 to 25% is a very small span, which is again why we want to use percentile. If we were working with averages, we'd have an average here, and we'll probably have here and here being 1 or 2 standard deviations, and you really end up using a lot of significant information. And up above, we see the numbers, and guess what? We can see that on 3 of the labs, I had zippo, nothing was detected, and the other 3 labs, I had very small numbers. Okay, now we can go over, and if you go and do something like species, we have the same thing happening. And usually it's nice to go back to quantile, and we see we had exactly one value. That particular species showed up in one lab, and that was it. Let's go down and see something perhaps a bit more familiar. Let's take a look at Bifidolongum, and we can see we had for quantile we had a good amount, Not sure what happened there. Maybe a measurement error. And then oh, I know why that date. I look at it, and that was the onset date. So it absolutely collapsed, started coming back, and then disappears again. So it gives you that information. If you want to see by the numbers, again, we see what the numbers are like, and we can see where we lie relative to other people who have uploaded their samples. We have a wide mix of people with conditions and healthy individuals too. And just taking everybody as a whole gives you actually very reliable results because it's not dominated by one group, but a mixture. So you end up getting a nice random sampling happening. So that's basically it. If you, let's go up by order. And bacteroids, which is often cited in the literature as being related to one thing or another. And you can see that at least I've been writing very much near the very top of the values for there. If we go down to the usual, some of the other things like Pasturus, rock bottom. The phyllum level, much smaller group. Let's take a look at the firmicutes, and that one I'm sitting about the bottom 25%. Bacteroids, I'm on the top. So my ratio between those two is definitely abnormal, favoring the bacteroids, which is far more higher value than the firmicutes. So that gives you some tools to understand what is actually happening in your microbiome. Straightforward. Quantile there purpose is to say, okay, has there actually been a major shift somewhere, 2221, 221? It means you're bouncing back and forth. As you can see here, that's what I am. I'm around the 25 percentile, popping back and forth. Okay, I think that's enough for today. So you can go out and have some fun. Again, it is on my site, and enjoy yourself. If you have suggestions, send them to me.